Hello, I'm Roy Richardson, and this is the Dynamic Business Leaders Podcast. Welcome to another edition of the Dynamic Business Leaders Podcast, brought to you by Aurora Infotech, cybersecurity firm helping businesses stay secure in today's digital world. I'm your host, Roy Richardson, and I'm joined by my insightful co-host, Sean Murphy. Sean, always great to have you here. Ready for today's conversation?
Absolutely, Roy. I am honored. It seems like these podcasts get better and better every time we do it. And we have the pleasure of having Marnie on today, and she's going to go into her story, which it's like we were talking a few minutes ago about when I first met her a couple of years ago. The smile just radiates. I'm walking in purpose, and I immediately was drawn to that. Didn't know it until a couple of months later, seeing her talking about leadership at the Grow FL event, and then going to her site, seeing that she's all about leadership, and that's a passion of mine. So anyway, with all of that being said, I think our listeners are really going to lean into this segment with an outstanding individual. So back to you.
No doubt about that. And I second everything you said there. And I know today we're both thrilled to welcome Marnie Forestieri. Let me walk her runway of accolades here. But, TEDx speaker, educator, entrepreneur, and founder of the Young Innovators Academy. And from hosting a TV show at the age of 7 to building a scalable education ecosystem, Marnie's journey is all about preserving the magic of childhood, curiosity, and empowering future leaders. Marnie, welcome to the Dynamic Business Leaders Podcast.
We are going to have fun. I already know that.
Yes. All right, good deal. Well, before we dive into your story, let's start with a few fun questions to get to know you better. What's something quirky, unusual, unexpected that your team knows and loves about you?
Well, that depends who you ask, okay? But I think I'm known for different things. For example, for my passion, my passion for what I do every day. But also for like asking everybody, do you have dessert? Do you have chocolate? Even though I've told them, if I ask for chocolate, don't give it to me because I'm on a diet. But then I would go and forget that I asked that, and I go and ask them that. And they already know. So they claim that I'm not very consistent sometimes with those things.
Got
Awesome.
it.
Awesome. So, I can totally relate with the dessert part of it. And, I would say I saw in your bio an interesting point that you were a TV show host at just 7 years old. Tell us a little bit about it and what that was like.
Right.
Well, I grew up in a very small island in Dominican Republic, and I went to this TV show when I was 7 as a guest. Out in the cook section, I was showing the other kids how to cook. I don't know how to cook up to this day, which is funny. But after the show, the producer approached my mother and asked her if I wanted to be a show host. So apparently, even though probably what I was cooking was not good, they liked what I saw. And I had the great privilege of being raised by parents that would allow me to try new things. I was excited about that. And my parents allowed me to do that. So pretty much I grew up every Saturday entertaining crowds of hundreds of kids. And we had to come up with like the different sections of the show. That ended when I turned 11 because they fired me from the job.
Fired?
At
11.
At 11 because I was no longer a kid and it was a kid's show. And that was a very interesting experience. But those lessons from that season of my life stayed on and are an inspiration for what we are doing today at Young Innovators.
That's awesome. You mentioned small island, the Dominican Republic. First of all, a very beautiful country and one of my favorites. I hail from an even smaller little island that could probably fit 300 times in the Dominican Republic called St. Martin. But, a very interesting story. And you mentioned getting fired there. I would venture to say there's probably some attorneys who would probably look into child labor laws.
I think the statute of limitation passed a long time ago.
Awesome. So let's jump in a little bit to what you're doing today. And I would say, what's one myth or misconception that people have about early childhood education? I know this is really a passion of yours, and so lay it out there for us.
So once I found out that I wanted to devote the rest of my life to early childhood education, I went through a long journey that took me where I am today. But the whole idea of the brand, and it was very tied to our core beliefs, me and my team. That is to protect the integrity of early childhood education and to provide great environments for the children during the most fertile years of their brain development. This is where it happens in the first 5 years. So you can like go back to your childhood. You will see that even if you don't remember, a lot of who you are today has to do with the people that were around you, how they talk to you, how they approach different challenges and fears.
That's true.
So preserving that integrity of that environment became my priority and my life's mission and work.
That is mentioned to you when we were getting ready to start the podcast that I was with the Leadership Institute, and Truist Bank owns this Leadership Institute that their predecessor BB&T has owned for about 30 years now. It was in the 20s when I was there, but the institute's been around about 75 years, and
Wow.
and a lot of what we learned as leaders and executives was that that early childhood was very, very instrumental in the way you led people as adults. And so
Yep.
I love what you said there. It just reminded me of that. And I know some of our listeners who has been through some of those programs. Roy, you've been through it, and there's
Yeah.
others that are frequent listeners will really lean into that. Now that we've warmed up a little bit, let's rewind a bit. You talked a little bit about how the journey started as a 7-year-old in the Dominican Republic. But tell us a little bit more about that journey from educator to entrepreneur and author. I know you're not just an educator. You've done TED Talks. You have your own podcast. Whenever I reached out to you, I did some research, and like I said, I've sat in on events where you've talked about leadership and the importance of it. So let's talk a little bit about that journey a little bit more and the things that you're doing.
Well, I think you grow as a leader with your walk, right? Like in my first career was actually a journalist. That's how I started. And that I ended up working for CNN Spanish. So it was an amazing experience for me because it taught me how to be fast and persistent and the value of so many things of integrity and speed because it's a really fast-paced environment where you have to make decisions instantly. So I think I got a lot of learning, but after doing that like 5 years in my career, and I'm like I need to transition to something like different. And one of the situations was that my father passed away. So I suddenly had to step on as an only child. I had to go back and I had to take care of my family's business. So that's how I had to become an entrepreneur. I had no idea that impact of my dad's legacy that was not spoken. A lot of dads sometimes they don't talk, but the kids are watching.
Got it.
I think he didn't sit me and give me the training, but I started remembering like everything that I have watched him do in his businesses. And I started replicating. And that was actually my first business, like turning around what he left, his legacy, and selling it.
What kind of business was it?
So he was a distributor for Kodak. I don't know, probably the
Yeah.
new generation, they don't even know.
What are you talking about? Yes, absolutely.
But so what he was doing that in the island and photographic, there used to be something for the next generation that's listening that you used to take your film and develop. So he did. And my first decision as an entrepreneur that I was rushed into this position all of a sudden, it was like, this is not a sustainable business for the future. So I knew I had to reinvest the funds and restructure the company. And what I did back then, I actually I didn't even sell the business. I sold all the merchandise, the assets, and I did my first business was property management. So I leased the spaces that he had. And with that, I created like a baseline for me and my future that could allow me to do the things that I really want to explore. So
Very cool.
I was very grateful. Up to this day, I still that managed. That's my first business. And then I started exploring like, what do you want to do? Before I became an entrepreneur, I think it's very important to learn with other people's money. I actually went to corporate America and I work in the telecom. So I was the VP of marketing. I did sales. And so I had that experience of working for a larger company, spending larger budgets, which gave me a very better understanding of how the different departments are interconnected. And that was back in my 30s.
Yeah.
So I had a very successful corporate career, ended up working with Verizon in the Caribbean, great company, like as a consultant. And then I finally said, I want to move to the US. And that was the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey. I'm ready. I already understand. Now I'm ready to become what I need to become. And I didn't know what I wanted to do at the beginning. I probably that happened.
You mentioned Kodak. Kodak was the Apple of that generation.
Yeah.
That was on the back end of that generation, which you're talking about. But Kodak and Xerox and Polaroid, those were the big three, Mag 3 back then. And so that is fantastic that you had the knowledge to take over the business. And you said you went to work for Verizon?
Yeah, for another company called Centennial, and then ended up working for
God, yeah.
Verizon. Um,
Roy is laughing because Roy was in telecom
So my
in the
background,
Caribbean.
I know that.
my previous company, this is my second technology company. My previous company was a telecom that we created and ended up flipping after 10 years. And it was based in St. Martin. But so yeah, the telecom arenas, everything that you just said there, and I stayed with the parent company. So learning those different departments and how things are reliant on each other. And Centennial PR was actually one of our landing partners for the fiber cable from St. Martin. So yeah, small world.
What a small world. Yeah.
Yes.
It was a great experience for me. But one, to your point of Kodak and Polaroid and all those iconic brands that nobody knows now, right?
Right.
Um, one thing that I always like heard my father say, and I think that's one of the things that stayed with me, is like he didn't want to train me to follow a business. He wanted to build a skill set.
Yes.
And that was so important because in his career, I saw how that industry had been disrupted with like new technologies. I started seeing that. And that's why I decided to close the stores because I didn't see a future in that. And thanks to his teaching that he said, like, look, you're not married to a brand. You're not married to like a product. You're married to your evolution, to making and
Yes.
that thought, like followed me for the rest of my life. So I have never been afraid of starting over, as you will hear I continue to talk. Never been afraid because
Hey.
I kind of, as visionaries, sometimes we can even see the end of a company at the beginning,
That's
right?
right.
Like we can see, okay, this is not built the right way. But the reason I chose the early childhood to bring it back is because I was an entrepreneur in the US. I didn't even have the visa. Okay. So I had to find a visa to stay here. I became EB5 investors,
Okay.
first in the 2008. And I sponsored my family. So I was determined I want to live in the United States. And the reason why I'm a European national, so I could have lived anywhere in the world, right? Everybody, but no other place in the world attracted me. I had European passport. I could have started there, but I said that's not me. I am an entrepreneur. And I knew back then that the only country that would provide me that environment is the United States. So happy. And sometimes now that I'm a proud American, but like we forget back how we started this country.
Yeah.
It's three of us,
That's
right?
right.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
right.
Like
That's
that
right.
is
coming
true.
together and
That's right.
really working really, really hard for many years.
That's right. That's right. I
You know,
love that.
I will jump in real quick here, Sean, and say that You mentioned some amazing brands back there, right? And companies of the past with Xerox and Kodak, et cetera. Let's park Motorola right next to that.
Yes.
These are stalwarts that I would say that, you would never have thought would not no longer be around. But when you fail to innovate and keep with
Yes.
the trends,
Yes.
I think I remember the Kodak case study and back
Yes.
and was just a perfect example, a case study on missed opportunities and ongoing adoption, right? You said something earlier, Marnie, about Kodak and the new generation. They probably think you're talking about the rapper.
I, that's
Thanks
right.
for enlightening me
That's
because
right.
I
That's
wouldn't
right.
know who Kodak is.
Florida's own Kodak Black, right? That is funny.
Well, you're trendy, Roy. You're in touch with the new generation.
That's funny. Well, listen, real quick before we go into, we move on, I will tell you that you're trendy as well. I had the pleasure of stopping by one of your locations, and there's robots in there where these kids are interacting with robots, and you're like, what?
That's
And
amazing.
and the lady who runs the location, she's like, "Oh yeah, we've had these for 4 years." I'm like, "What? 4
Yeah.
years?" Yeah, I'm like, "I gotta take a picture of just the robots because it's so cool." And she's like, "Well, these are kind of old.
Yeah.
We're probably gonna be upgrading,
Yeah.
sometime soon." And so, yeah, that is
Well,
innovation.
thank you
Yes,
so
that's
much for the
Yeah.
fantastic.
That's amazing, and not going too far back on the companies we called before, but the failure to innovate and stay ahead and how do you say have the vision? You've invested in robots 4 years ago. They're coming up now. I don't know, Sean. You're mentioning that, and I'm seeing the Jetsons for some reason. The other,
Right.
They
Well,
look like them. Yeah. They had the kids name them, and they were
right.
dressed up for the Halloween. So they started
Halloween. Oh,
the
nice.
Yes, yes.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Well,
So,
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna say this, Roy, before
yeah,
I'm gonna start us into the next segment since we've talked about innovation and stuff like that. And you
take
can
it away.
ask your question, but I'm just gonna talk about we the approach that you have to education is anything but traditional. Walking through the halls of the facility, it was just amazing. Roy couldn't make it; he wanted to attend. We had talked about him coming, but he wasn't able to. But we're talking about there was the robots in the facilities, the things where they're learning to draw, and you can see how their hands are being developed at different ages. And then the other cool thing that I thought was I'm like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. The kids were using wood shops types of equipment that allowed them to build trucks. And I'm like,
Wow.
I see some future, wood shop people here where they're using, instead of using technical, skills like one group, you got some that are going to do traditional, and they'll look back and like, we went through Miss Marnie's academy at 3 and 4 years old learning this stuff. And
Well, they
so
probably won't remember the name, my name, but yes, Young Innovators.
they may not remember the name,
Yeah.
right? But anyway, so Roy, I'm a little excitable. You know how I get. So take it, ask your question that you were going to ask, and I just wanted to throw that out.
No, but that's
Without
amazing,
witness,
and
man.
it's amazing to hear, and it takes me back to my early childhood in the islands where we had, and you talked just now about the skilled learning, right? And I can tell you a lot of what I learned in my early childhood in the islands with those skill type workshops, I still rely on today, right? So you're so right in terms of the impressions from that age and how, it's almost that, they are, how do you say, what is learned at that early age. And I can speak for myself. I have memories that are frozen in time, but it's just amazing sometimes when I go back and I reference certain things that, speaking to my mom, she's like, how can you remember that? You were like 3 or 4 years old, right? So let's get back to this here. What makes Young Innovators Academy different from other childcare centers?
So Young Innovators is an evolution, right? I started writing curriculum in 2013. And the reason I decided to start writing curriculum is because what was out there was traditional. And back then, I saw the opportunity to expose kids to experiential, real life learning situations and that it was completely disconnected. And the gift of early childhood is that everybody is born an innovator. We're all. If you spend some time in our schools, the kids will teach you the principles of innovation. They have it naturally. It comes natural to them. They communicate. They're not afraid of anything. Just look at a 2-year-old and take a chair away. They will try to grab that chair for
Right.
like
Yeah.
for the
Yeah.
rest of the day. They're persistent. They're not afraid. And when they're exposed to the right environment, all those skills blossom. So the challenge was like, how do we preserve these natural abilities that children possess and preserve that for the rest of our lives? And the problem is that when we like expose children to rigorous academic environments, all those skills disappear.
Ooh, yes, yes.
Absolutely. I could ask you like a question, chemistry question, or one of your least favorite subjects in middle school, high school, elementary. You probably won't remember anything, right? Because we were trained to be test takers and just pass the exam and the moment that we like completed the exam, guess what happened to that information? We no
You
longer
lose it.
remember
That's right. You
because
lose it.
it was not hands-on. It was not connected to the real world and live experiences. So that's what Young Innovators is. It's like a laboratory of real world problems. And every single lesson plan starts with a challenge that the kids see in their daily life. So the kids are already trained, and we called it. So I developed this curriculum. We wrote one first, and then we were forced to rewrite a second one. And the same team that wrote it back, we said, how can we make it much better? And how we did it was like we connected the 21st century skills movement, which are the skills that kids need in the future, with more STEM thematic topics that children were interested in. And then we blended the two. And it was our challenge was how do we communicate in a very simple way that parents and teachers and everybody else understand? And it took us a while until one day, Dr. Debbie Mitchell, which co-wrote the curriculum she was used to be a UCF professor, and Sarah Sprinkler, an amazing educator, they came out, oh, we have it. It's the CAPE strategy.
Oh,
The
yeah.
Cape
Yes.
is the image of a child as a superhero solving problems on their own. I mean, I remember the first images of the marketing promotion were kids using a cape strategy. And the cape was the 4 letters of like actually infusing the 21st century skill. The C was challenge. So all of a sudden the kids started to see everything as a challenge. Everything is a problem that they can solve. And that we took it to another level, to every single domain, from literacy to math. And I'll give you an example. The second one, the A for CAPE, is analyze. So we are training kids that before you come up with an idea on how to solve a problem, you have to research. So we give them the tools to do that research and we guide them to the process on how to sort that information. And then the brainstorm a solution for that challenge that we gave you, and then make a prototype, make a solution, make it happen, and then evaluate. Like the E was evaluate, see if it works, and be the voice for your community. And it became so then our challenge was like, okay, now we have to rewrite every single thousands. I mean, we have like over 10,000 lesson plans, daily reading for
Wow.
everybody. And we were like, okay, so how do we pack all this? It was so much fun to write this curriculum. Just to give you an example of how the Cape works, the theme is the moon, earth, and space. At the beginning, all these challenges are set up for the kids. We're going to the moon at the end of the month. Okay, an imaginary trip.
Right.
So before we go to the moon, we have to get ready. So the whole like all the weeks they lead to like scaffolding of this
Mhm.
theme, and the kids are from exercising on how to go to the moon when they get there to how
Right.
to build a spaceship and counting how many people can come with me in my rocket ship. And at the end of the unit, then everybody's going to the moon. The parents are going. Everybody's going in an intergalactic trip, imaginary, and the kids have so much fun. So that's how we infuse it in every day. So to create an environment that is fun for the teachers and for the parents and for the children in the school.
Marnie, that's amazing. And I'm leaning back a little bit into my childhood now. I had in my fourth grade year, I had a teacher who, by the way, we're still very, very good friends. Now. But what made him, I would say, stand out as the best educator that I ever had in the experience was, and back then we didn't have different classrooms and going from one to the other. Was one teacher that would teach math, et cetera, et cetera. But when it came to history, he would actually turn out the lights and tell us, "Hey, put your heads down, close your eyes, and as I tell you the story," and he actually sat there and told it and made it and brought us into the story as if we were actual characters in that era. And it just was phenomenal to see. It was a very small class, but some of us still get together once in a while. And with him, he lives in Europe now. But it's like the appreciation, everyone he inspired to learn and go a different, to take things to the next level. So, when you were talking about that whole, your cape and the different elements, etc., it just took me back, but amazing. And it's really, really refreshing to hear that, because as a business owner, one of my biggest challenges that I find today when we are hiring and interviewing people or even working with people is what I call surface knowledge. Nobody actually looks to deep dive anymore to find, figure out what the challenge is, figure out what the solution is, come up with a prototype, and even evaluate that prototype. And if it doesn't work, go back to the drawing board. We take things today at face value. So kudos to you.
Right.
And that's what we remember. What we experience is what we remember. Going back to your experience, like reliving the history lessons. To me, like going back to my early years being a show host, those are the experiences that stick with us, that build our skill set. And that's what children are not exposed to in education. And that's our commitment to change. But in order to deliver that, there's a whole machine that has to work. And as a business person, that has been the challenge, right? Like, how do you really build a machine where this is actually happening in the school? And that the challenge was, in order to have an environment like that, and the schools that you visited, Sean, you need great leadership, you need great teachers, you need a great thought leader at the top, because it doesn't work. If not, it doesn't work.
Yeah, you're right.
You have to have that commitment first to the quality and to the experience in order to trickle that down. And that, as an entrepreneur, we had the formula, great, the lessons written, the videos, but if you don't have the staff to be able to deliver a high quality educational experience, you cannot do anything. And the biggest challenge is that the reality of the industry is that it is a really high turnover industry. We're not going to change that.
Right.
Nobody wants to work in childcare. If they work in childcare for a couple of years, then it's a lot of stress. They will move on to something different. You don't have that stable workforce, and that is the challenge of the whole industry.
Got it. And so that was one of the questions. That was the question I was going to ask you. And so you're having a challenge with high turnover, but I would imagine your leadership team, does that turnover quite frequently, or is that stays intact, and that's how you can keep your culture and your mission on point because your leaders are stable?
Well, Young Innovators, we don't have the high turnover problem because we inspire the teachers. So we are way below average.
Very good.
I think if
That's
you want
awesome.
to know the culture of a company, look at their Indeed reviews, look at their Glassdoors. That's what people look at. You'll see this childcare company, the leaders are bad, management is bad. It's because probably it is. But so we take care a lot of the employees first, like
That's very important.
that culture that they do feel, because we do know that it's a very stressful job, and you need to make them feel that what they're doing is important. And COVID changed a lot of those things for many operators. I'm talking now about nationwide. Turnover is the biggest operational risk of providers in an industry where we do need. We cannot put artificial intelligence and we cannot put any like robots there. I think that's the challenge. So when we grew to 4 locations, the Young Innovators Network, and we learned a lot from that experience. The first one is like running a school out of the Orlando pocket was more like was challenging for us because we had a school in Tampa that did very well, but it was not the same culture. Same, they had a great team, but when you don't have the right leadership close to you that you can. So from that lesson we learned, we eventually sold it this summer to an amazing operator, an elementary school teacher that became our first licensee. But what we learned there is the importance of the principal, the director of the school. That person is the community liaison, the expert in early education. And it's really hard to scale quality in the industry. So that's why we and this is not the first company that I built. I learned that the hard way. That was my challenge, right? We'll probably talk about it. I saw how dysfunctional a system can grow into when you don't have the right ingredient.
So
Got it.
true. I mean, I could tell you that one of the things, Marnie, that we looked at in my previous company was expansion to other markets, and we actually went. My business partner and I at the time, we went to another market for a familiarization trip, and we both got on the flight within 6 hours, went back to where we came from and said that there was no way we could expand there because we realized that the secret to our success was what you just said, was having that leadership and to maintain the culture and having that culture just, how you say, infused and be contagious throughout the organization, and having some, having a remote site where we had to jump on an airplane to go to without one of us being there, it was a recipe for disaster. So
Yeah.
I can certainly understand.
It was. Now the school is 100 times better than when we left because we sold it to the right person, right?
Person.
Like somebody that has skin in the game, that has the respect, that has the commitment to the quality. And that was very hard to find in an employee
Right.
to because childcare is an education company, but it's also a business. So we had like employees that we hired that were very comfortable having less kids than what we wanted, right? Like didn't understand because they had the salary, the employee mindset, and that was the gap, right? So we learned that, but our leadership here is extraordinary, and that's how we are keeping the culture. And now we're ready to scale to help.
Got it. So tell us a little about the scale and your growth expansion over the next 3 to 5 years, if you could.
Of course. I've been working on this for 10 years. Okay. So in my industry, I think I've seen I've done every business model. I started as a franchisee in the industry, and that gave me the impression of what happens when you're in a rigid system that doesn't innovate. So I said, I am a terrible franchisee. I have to get out of here because these people are not going to change. And that's where the innovation in the curriculum came about from that experience. So I said, they're not going to change. And there were a lot of people in the space that were not educators. So they didn't understand that. They were not even understand what we were saying, the educators, right? Like the importance of building these early years. So that experience taught me that. Then I bought an independent center, and I remember my banker, Mike Smith from Truist, BB&T. He thought I was crazy because it was a school in foreclosure. It's the school that we still have, our first campus. And he went there, and the school was, losing money. And he looked at me and said, you are crazy. What are you going to do with this school? How are you going to turn this school around? Are you sure you want to do it? And I said, absolutely, I can. Yes. So what we did here is the first time we implemented our formula and our playbook, which is let's put a very good curriculum, deliver quality. And the real estate asset was not a brand new school, but we converted it. We improved the location. We made it better. And then all of a sudden we were full. And that was that was my experience being in an independent childcare center. And from that experience, what I learned is like, it's really lonely to be by yourself in a community and not have all that interaction with other providers or get tips marketing. It feels isolated, and you need a lot of information from marketing. It's a skill set that you cannot even build in one lifetime, especially marketing. And then I realized, wow, this is tough. And then that first location became a franchisor, and we opened many locations with that model, with that first curriculum. But the experience of becoming a franchisor taught me that every community was different, and that a franchise contract was too rigid to allow franchisees to innovate what they needed to do. So, I mean, Winter Park, you went to Winter Park, is a completely different demographic culture than Winter Garden. And we're in the same city, or Oviedo. It's like you need to understand the flavors of every community. You understand the demographic. Everyone is a different challenge and a different buyer persona. So from that experience of being a franchisor, I learned that. I learned, like, you need to give them the flexibility to build their own model, and that's exactly what we're ready to do with Young Innovators. It's called Young Innovator Schools. My challenge was that I needed to build a technological infrastructure to deliver the services. And I tried to do it for many years, but I found out that I'm a terrible engineer, or I could never deliver. I hired engineers to deliver the product, but it was never scalable. So we could never bring it to life until last year. We met an amazing entrepreneur who was one of the founders, engineering, founded Netflix. And he has a company of 800 engineers around the world.
Very cool.
And he is brilliant. He's a leader in the AI tech, and he already had all these offices around the world. And I said, hey, I didn't even know who he was, and I pitched him like, I've been trying to do this platform with this curriculum that, to inspire children to do different and to upload content, but it was never good. So I haven't been able to launch it. And he said, you know what? I will build it for you. And Barash Mundapavi, which he's my partner, and we're very proud to welcome him as the co-founder of Young Innovator School, which is our future. He finalized this incredible tech product platform to host the curriculum training, to make it visible for the teachers and for the users of the platform on how to deliver the quality. So finally I was able to we were able to do that.
Nice.
Excellent.
That's amazing, and how do you say, it's a testament that, once again, with adversity along the paths, one door closes, another one opens, right?
That's right.
And now you've met somebody who can actually partner with you and help take and make your dream a reality. But speaking a little bit about adversity, every founder faces tough decisions. Let's talk a little bit about yours. Can you describe a challenging moment in your career when you felt like giving up, and what strategies or mindset helped you overcome it?
Well, so I think the biggest challenge that I faced was allowing the wrong people in my company. And I think that happens to a lot of founders. When I opened Oviedo the first time, I had these two guys that came for a year every single day. Every single day they went, and I'm like, what the heck? What are you guys? What are you doing here? And they were like, oh, we want to help you grow. We want to help you grow. At the end of the year, I was already opening a school in Lake Nona. I won the contract with them after 5 years of the relationship and bidding. And we were opening this school, and then I let the wrong people in the company. And while we started growing this, I I started feeling this is wrong. I made a huge mistake. And I felt that it was like going to a playground and I couldn't do it anymore. I was feeling like I was not myself. My health was deteriorating for working with these two individuals. And I said, I can't do it anymore. I mean, I don't even care if they can take it, but because I don't want it. And I think the hardest moments was accepting that I didn't want to grow with them. I had to let our school in Lake Nona go. And I worked really hard for that school for many years, but I was like, you know what? If this is what it takes, it's okay. God will provide. We'll do it again.
Right.
And then going back to my team and telling them, look, guys, we're gonna do it again. I'm sorry. Like we made a mistake and nobody
Right.
was happy by then. And I saw how the culture that they brought in it was like affecting not only me, but everybody else. So
Yeah.
I my first step was apologizing to everybody. I was like, guys, I'm sorry. I made a mistake. But this actually ended up being the best thing that happened to us because even though we like we struggle, it took me a lot of years even to forgive those people, right? Like I mean, and forgive myself for allowing them to come into my business. I was like, why? I mean, they didn't have any money. They didn't have any. Like, why did I allow these guys in my company? And I think that was the biggest challenge, allowing my forgiving myself for that mistake but learning from it and surrounding myself with very wise people that would never let me make a mistake like that. So in that time, we also met these Harvard professors, and they were the first ones that frame it. Dr. Edward Cup, he's like, "This is so good, guys. This is the best thing that happened to you in your
Right.
life." You know what? Because now you have a prototype that is not going to work and you're going to build it again. And we framed it like that. We're like, wow, yes, because we took the whole company, we took everything we had done and we said like, wow, this is what we can do in the curriculum. This is what we can do in HR. This is what we can do in marketing. And when we took apart everything together and brought it back, we realized that what helped us stay grounded was never looking back, never looking sidewalk, and just moving forward
Forward. Yes.
and just competing with ourselves. I mean, we were competing with ourselves, with what we
Yeah.
had built, and now we had to do it again. And it was an amazing experience of it humbled us. It allowed me to learn to forgive like people that hurt
Yeah.
you and
Yeah.
It's
don't
important.
care
Yeah.
about it. And it allowed me to let go and say, you know what? Like when things go is because you have to have your both hands to receive the blessing.
That's right.
I always say that, and first of all, thanks for sharing that amazing story. And there are not many people around that get to have a dry run, learn from it, and then
Right.
do it all over, right? And I tell my kids and I tell my staff here as well, making a mistake is okay as long as we learn from it and we can move on and recognize that it was a mistake and we have the recipe to improve it.
Right.
We improve the mistake, then is when we have a problem, right? So no, that's amazing. That really, really amazing. So Sean, let's delve into the
Yeah.
evolution of the childcare industry.
Right. So we know that like other things, the childhood industry, care industry is evolving very fast as well. What trends are you observing, particularly in the areas of consolidation, private equity? You talked about that. So dive into that for us a little bit and let us know what's going on there.
Well, I think there's the trend of the private equity sector coming into most small businesses that work, and childcare happens to be one of them. And we are seeing that consolidation of smaller centers, which can be good too or bad if it's an organized system that is mature. So, like we've seen that disruption enter our market. There's so many private equity companies going and
Right.
a lot of the bigger players entering the industry that for certain it's going to be a different industry in 5 to 10 years.
Got it. Got it. How does the shift impact innovation and competitiveness or competition in the marketplace?
think I think that depends on the firm and depends on the leaders of the company. I mean, I do see the key of this industry in reality is the operator on the ground because as we discussed, the community every community is different and an innovator cannot be in every location trying to pinpoint what's particular about this location. So the success, the playbook of a company coming in and taking over, it would be the ones that are willing to adapt, that are willing to respect the local leadership and give them autonomy
Right.
and foster that creative spirit and treat the teachers right. I think
Yeah.
That's the trend. Give you there are a lot of companies that in the industry that don't treat people good. That's why it has the reputation of the
Yeah.
high turnover. But there are some that are starting to offer things that we've never seen in our industry, like health insurance and case and things like that. And that's what I would eventually like to see, because this is a job for teachers, and I'm a big advocate of the career and profession. If you're born a teacher, you're born a teacher.
I'm a teacher.
You-
That's right.
yeah,
That's right.
True.
this is a calling, and I
Right.
have so much respect for these women. And I think at the end of my career, what I would like to see is that a company comes and treats them with a respect, with the honor, with the opportunities to grow, but also with some security.
Yeah.
No,
Interesting.
I can remember when I visited your location, I was telling him it's been about 10 years since I've been in early child care center, right? And we were at one near downtown where there's very little turnover. And the vibe of the location was very similar to the vibe that I saw at your location. You know, all of the staff and even the parents were, speaking, "Hey, good morning," and it was just very friendly, open, and you can tell that you have definitely set the right direction as to the way folks are in there. So, but anyway, Roy, you were going to say
Yeah,
something,
well, they say that every ship needs a captain,
right?
but a captain without a rudder is a rudderless ship.
Right,
So it sounds to me like what you're saying there, Sean, is that the rudders has everything pointing in the right direction there.
right.
So, amen. Congratulations on that. Let's talk a little about how you support others through your work, Marnie. How do you partner with educators, parents, or providers beyond your initial engagement?
So because it became my mission just to be an advocate for children through adults. So I've
Mm,
been writing. I'm an author for Griffin House, which is an education company, and I develop toys for Kaplan too. So the mission of that part of my personality was to educate the parents, which is what we do through the podcast, the new generation of educators, and just to pass the torch as we head towards like more mature ages, to be make sure that they respect that those early years and how children should learn. So that's why we host the podcast. It became a whole movement of how to practice the CAPE strategy with the parents as
right,
educators. We have an app on the phones, the Young Innovators app. That's what's coming live to that. That's how we are going to scale. Is
Amazing.
through these products, because we learned that we didn't want to open more schools ourselves, or we didn't have the bandwidth to do it. We had 3 really well run schools, but the moment that you have 4, 5, 6, I mean, it's too many hats, too many. We didn't want to do that. And franchising, as we started discussing, was not the option for us, because we wanted to do more like a support licensing for
mm,
providers that provide high quality services, like a blend model, because they do need it. The ones that are not in franchise, they do need all the services. So that's where we're getting ready to launch.
mm,
Nice. And can you, I mean, thank you for that. And first of all, I think, when it's amazing to see your how do you say, you can connect the dots and as you're going through your story with us and on your own experiences, right? When you realize that being a franchisee was not for you, it was too rigid. It wasn't what you wanted. And you're taking that now into your own program that you're developing and making sure that you're not putting those same restrictions and guardrails on people so that they can be successful and innovators, if I may use that term, and their partnership with you. That's great to hear. And can you share a success story or moment that really affirmed your mission?
Well, I think there are so many moments, like from parent front, from the children's front, for me, and from the providers that we're starting to serve in our pilots. Because you guys are both in the tech space. That before you launch a product like that, you need to mature it, make sure it works really, really good. I'm one user that if the product doesn't work and I have a glitch or something, I give up, right? So you have to be really careful. So we have pilot providers in the system. So that is what is helping us refine what we want. So from the children's perspective and testimonial, I think my biggest joy is going to a school and listening to a 3 and 4 year old explain to me why it's great to fail because that's part of the philosophy.
Yeah.
They will tell you because we practice growth mindset infused
That
in.
is amazing.
So when you hear a child, because it's part of their routine, the rules of making, the rules of growth, the rules. When I hear a little child tell me that it's okay that they failed because they can do it again. The first prototype doesn't work. It doesn't work. That's okay because we can evaluate and then we can do it again. I mean, that is a way of thinking. So that's what the Young Innovators curriculum does is they practice it on a daily basis that they already know. They wake up, they come to school, and where is the problem that we're going to solve today? Which problems are we going to solve?
That's
And
amazing.
we're going to make it. Let's make it happen. Because you have to teach kids what we were talking,
Yeah.
that everybody's very abstract nowadays, right? Like,
Yeah.
oh, can you please solve that problem? And they bring it back to us. But we are empowering the kid to become makers. That's where the Harvard, we had a wonderful partnership with Harvard professors that came this year to Orange County, and they really trained like the county. We didn't keep it with Young Innovators.
Oh, very
We
cool.
Oh,
sponsor
that's
with
awesome.
Yes.
the
Yes.
Early Learning Coalition. It was a
Yes.
community initiative,
Good
and
initiative. Yes.
yeah, so and the Early Learning Coalition of Orange County sponsored it, and it was such a beautiful community driven because
Right.
different providers serve different market service segments,
Right.
and everybody needs that same mentality. So that's our mission from the child, from the parents. When we can see that we're helping a parent feel safe, that their kid is fine. I mean, our parents trust us so much, especially in established,
Yes.
because when you're opening the first like year of a new school is always like, you're trying, you're putting the team together. So they're all always like like glitches in
Yeah.
the
Right.
Yeah.
system that you have to improve. But an established schools like our parents, Vito has been open. They just drop the kids and they're like, you do whatever you want. We're gonna trust us, right?
Well, the
They
results.
trust the
Yeah,
results.
the
I think
results.
that's the biggest testimonial and the peace of mind that comes that they're learning, they're knowing while they're at work, providing for their family. So, and
Yes.
then from the providers, like my biggest joy now that I'm working more with the providers, the people that we're going to serve. And for me, that gives me so much hope to be able to help somebody in the community that has an entrepreneurial mindset in the game, that understands that we are able to carry some of the load, because this is a hard industry, this is a hard job. And
Right.
just by being able to help somebody else that's starting in the journey, that is an honor.
Very,
Amen.
very cool. Man, you've given us a
Well said.
lot of
Yep.
great stuff. Yeah. So
Well
let's
said.
let's do a quick round of rapid fire questions, stuff you can just go from
Okay.
your gut. Tell me your favorite book.
Well, the one that I read every day is the Bible.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And I mean, there's so many books. I'm a very fast reader.
Okay.
So guess what I'm reading right now? Mr. Hack of the by Roy Richardson. I,
Uh,
I
proof your
enjoy. Yeah.
Oh.
Wow, this is really important. So I started reading the first chapters, but I am a very eclectic reader. I read very fast, and I enjoy the variety. I
Got
I
it,
couldn't,
got it.
like as soon. I think it's important an entrepreneur because the disruptive thinking comes from this all the intersection of all the domains.
Right.
That's
Yes.
where
That's
it
true.
comes from.
That's
So
true.
I can read a novel, or I can read a business book, or I can read a psychology book, or I can read anything like that. And
Some
that's
hacker book.
where, or the hacker book, which is my book for the weekend.
Well, I look forward to getting all the questions.
I really have a lot.
Awesome. So tell us your best. I mean, you are first and foremost. I would say that your aura is really permeating through through the video here, and I'm like
Right.
supercharged, right?
Well, I
Just
have a light here.
no, 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 no. It's
Oh,
energy. It's the
you
energy,
have that other,
So
you
so
know.
so tell us how do you dial it back and how do you recharge from the journey you've been on and keep things flowing?
Well, I think my perfect balance is my husband, and he's the one that can put up with me. He always says he's a veteran, he's a military guy,
Uh-huh.
and he always says that if he wouldn't have had that military training, he wouldn't have survived this. So like you, Sean,
Right.
he's a military man. So yeah, he
Which
can
which
handle me.
which branch?
The Air Force.
Air
Very cool.
Force.
Good deal. Tell us one word that describes your leadership style.
I think I allow people, I trust people, and I allow them to make their own decisions, even if they fail. So I'm very open,
Okay.
and I'm very good at delegating.
Got it. So that's a lot of words. That's more than one, but
Yeah.
we'll go
Oh,
with
sorry,
that. Open is a good one.
Alex. That's
So, Marnie, if you could assemble a dream board of
Mm,
advisors from people who are here today and maybe those from the past, right? No restrictions, who would be on it and why?
that's a super smart question. Okay, because I mean, I think in every team, you need a futurist, you need a realistic, you need an analytical, you need somebody that's always questioning. So you need all types of personalities. Putting this team, it was hard, but I do have a couple of them that are already in my life. One of them is John the Armas. He's a very well known leader in our community, and he's just brilliant. He's a visionary, so he would take that role. I would take my husband. He's really good reading people. I'm very bad sometimes, but he's really good. So he's the realist and he's the people reader.
mm.
And I think that for analytical and for data and for all those things, I think we have so like great, brilliant minds that I don't know if I would like them on the board because I really don't know them personally. Because
Mhm.
I think a team, they all have to, even though we have different personalities, they all have to get along. So I wouldn't bring a historical figure in the equation. That's the reason. Because for me, I think the secret ingredient of the team, I thought a lot of people, I was, wow, if I could bring a board, I would tell Oprah to come and join me,
Right.
and I will take all the like amazing women out there that are entrepreneurs um, to join the board too, or a couple of these tech guys that are geniuses, right? Elon Musk, I don't know if I want him on the board, but it's like for the people, I think I answered the question, right? The people that I know.
Yes. John and I did a men's group for about 5 years. John's a great guy. I hadn't seen him in over a decade. He started traveling down to South America a lot. But when I saw his name, I was like, oh my gosh, I got to reach out to John and say what's up to him. So that is fantastic.
And a great board. My wife is my partner in my business as well and keeps me grounded and I know Sean's wife keeps him grounded. So all good. Those are how do you say our North Stars, right? So
Angels.
yes, definitely, 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 definitely. And like you say, the only people who will put up with us.
Right.
So
Right.
let's
Right.
shift gears and talk a little bit about balance, something that every entrepreneur wrestles with. And God knows, we get in there and sometimes forget about time and everything else and health. But what routines or habits help keep you grounded?
So I started incorporating more habits as I entered my new decade a couple of years ago, because that's when you slow down and you have to visualize how do you see yourself for the next generation, right? And I always had this older friends, Sarah Sprinkle, which are great friends, and Dr. Debbie Mitchell, that are a couple of years. And in age, they're different, but in the heart, they are, I think, we're all the same age.
Dang.
I always admire that. And if I had that as a reference, I always say, I want to be like them when I'm that age and have that wisdom and have that peace that come from experience. If I do that, I have to start doing things differently. So I used to wake up at 3 a.m., at 2 a.m. Right now, my priority is my sleep. Yeah, one priority my
Yes.
whole
Yeah.
day. And so I rearrange everything so to actually put back what I neglected in the previous decades because I was working, and I
Right.
put it back on the on the forefront of what's important in this decade, and the well-being and connecting with the friends. I am very lucky because I have a lot of really good friends from my childhood up
Oh,
to
that's
this day.
amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, well, I love what you said about sleep. I read something when I was at the institute about the importance of executives, making sure they pay attention to that. But
Mhm.
looking back on, let's talk about doing some things a little bit different than you from in the past. So, if you could change one thing about your journey, what would it be?
When you have a growth mindset,
Right.
you have to say nothing. I think every single lesson, even the mistakes that I made, that I'm responsible, and that was the most important thing. What I would change is actually being like faster to recognize when I make a mistake. That like and just like adopt it and embrace it and learn from it and move on.
Right, right. And then, you mentioned earlier about having the two men as as wrong business partners. Anything you took away from that you learned from it, other than, hey, I made a mistake in choosing them, and that it's important to have the right people. Anything different from that?
Well, what I did this time to avoid that would happen to me, because you cannot imagine how many investors I get. I see the same guys coming for Young Innovators every
Right.
single day. They come, oh, do you want money? You want this? You want that? Blah, blah. But this time, I spot them from far, and then I have good people around me this time, including my team members, because they went through that experience with me. Like now we're like, hey, nope, we already been there. Like,
Right.
yeah,
Yep.
we've
Familiar
made it
roads.
there. Yeah, we have rules, and I learn not to make decisions on my own, right?
Yeah.
Because I might be too trust. I might be. I'm as an early childhood person, I think everybody's great. And that's not the case. So now I surrounded my people that are more objective, that would give me their honest opinion about a deal or an opportunity. And we had even more opportunities in Young Innovators. And we saw the same people, the same profile walk into the door. But this
Right.
time we were very good at saying, thank you. You cannot come in.
Yep.
Got it.
Let's wrap this section with, three top pieces of advice for leaders and founders.
Well, the three: learn to pivot, have a forward thinking attitude, surround yourself with really good people, and don't be afraid of innovating, because if you don't, your company's not going to grow.
Yeah. So as we look ahead, let's talk about your legacy and vision as we begin to wrap this podcast up. But what legacy do you hope to leave through the Young Innovators Academy?
Well, the legacy is nothing. I think as we get older, we become less interested in building our name, but more interested in building others.
All right.
So my legacy would be to inspire a next generation of childcare owners as we're about to exit in a decade or a decade and a half, right? Forming that leadership and seeing that we are able to pass the torch to people that are as committed as we were in our generation, which like sometimes is hard to see, but that would be the biggest legacy, to that people continue this commitment to provide that environment for the kids.
Excellent. Excellent.
Nice.
Excellent. I tell you what, like I said, I go back to the very beginning of the conversation today when I met you and your husband at the award ceremony. And there was, this light that we talked about a few minutes ago,
Uh,
right? It was radiant then. And you could tell that you were purpose driven. You had this growth mindset back then. And man, this has been rich and inspiring, everything I thought it would be. And so I thank you. Where can our listeners connect with you, learn more about you and what you're doing and how you're changing lives in our community?
So the Racing Innovators podcast is a good way to connect, because there is a space for forward thinking conversations about education, and the Racing Innovators hashtag in Instagram. And if LinkedIn is more the space where I connect with other providers or people that are looking to enter the industry. So that's the people that we're getting ready to serve, the legacy that we're starting to build. So, but if parents, the podcast, and for providers, LinkedIn, and also the podcast.
Got it. Got it. And any final thoughts before we wrap this thing up? Any shout outs you want to give? This has been unbelievable.
Well,
Incredible.
a shout out to you guys for bringing back the memories of your childhood. I mean, if I was able to do this with the conversation that we had today and bring us back to that reminds of our purpose, because we all play our destiny in our early childhood and in our childhood. We all play that. You probably were like I don't know that they didn't have cybersecurity in back in your age, but something related to what you play with.
Right,
And
right, right.
so if we always got is always our passions are always rooted there. And if you get lost in your life, it's okay. Just go back there. Just have these conversations and you'll quickly realize what your purpose in life is.
Right, right.
Very well
Well,
said.
Well, again, Marnie, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. Your passion for empowering children, your commitment to innovation. Again, it was amazing walking through and seeing all of the different things that you were doing. I went to a couple of different labs that you have there. It's truly inspiring. And as one, again, who's consistently try to just make our ecosystem better, I believe our listeners will walk away with a deeper appreciation for the foundation of importance of early learning. I know my kids went to a non-traditional type of learning, and I look back on that with great fondness. And again, the other part of it is how visionary leadership can transform an entire community, and you're doing that. So again, thank you for sharing your story, your wisdom with us today. Roy?
Yeah, no, absolutely, Sean. Marnie, I just want to echo that sentiment. First of all, and let me say thanks for the journey back to the early childhood days. And I can see, like I said, the aura, the energy. You almost make me want to be a child back in the early development days now, so that I could be a student in your academy.
Kids, don't worry.
Your journey from the from the classroom to the boardroom and everything in between, it's amazing to see what you've been able to put together, the lives that you're touching. We talked about legacy just now and the legacy that you want to leave behind, but I think there was one thing perhaps overlooked there is the legacy that you are already leaving behind just by the lives that you're touching.
That's right.
At such a young age, and the impression that you're leaving on them and setting them up to be future leaders, future engineers, future skilled people, and critical thinkers. I mean, I can't say enough. This has been an amazing journey for me, and I know I can speak on behalf of Sean.
Right.
You've shown us that building something meaningful takes courage, clarity, and a whole lot of heart, and that you have. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for being you and for being a dynamic business leader. And we're cheering you on every step of the way. And if Sean and I can be a resource for you, by all means,
absolutely,
just ask and we'll be there.
Thank you so much. Thank you for blessing the community with this amazing podcast too.
Right. And to our audience, thank you for tuning in to this edition of the Dynamic Business Leader podcast.
If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who would benefit from Marnie's story. And we'll be sure to include a link to her podcast down below. Sean, take it away.
Until next time, stay curious, stay driven, and keep leading with purpose.
Hi, I'm Roy Richardson, host of the Dynamic Business Leaders Podcast. Are you a business owner or a leader of a successful business? If yes, we'd love to have you as a guest on our program. Our goal is simple. We provide a platform for leaders to share their experiences to benefit others. We want to hear your story, how you got started, the challenges you faced along the way, and your passion today. If this sounds like you or you know someone who fits these criteria, then be sure to get in touch with us by visiting our website linked in the episode description below. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and click the notification bell to be notified when our next episode goes live. Or, if you'd rather listen to us during your car rides, you can also follow us on your favorite audio channel using your podcatcher. Thanks again, and remember, keep crushing it.